Number 9, number 9, number 9. Kenneth, what's the frequency? Hello? Hello? I'm live. I'm live. It's 6 p.m. Saturday. It's February 11th. No, 13th. And I'm here. I'm right here. Hello? Hello? Wouldn't that be trippy if I was tripping? Hey, Lisa. Hey, Debbie. Hi. Wouldn't that be weird if I was tripping and I was sitting there going, hello? Hello? Is anybody there? That'd be pretty weird, right? It's all right. I'm not tripping. I just said imagine I'm tripping. Go ahead. Imagine away now. Imagine anything. But I've got a strategy for you. I've got the following strategy. I posted some songs. Okay? I'm going to start playing one. Okay?
Back to back. Belly to belly. Yes, my friend. Back to back. Belly to belly.
It was a zombie jamboree. Took place in the New York cemetery.
It was a zombie jamboree in a New York cemetery. Parts of the island. I dig that song, man. That would be a bad trip. You're right. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, that's Rockapella doing the zombie jamboree. It made me think of it because it didn't really fit in with the music I picked for tonight for y'all. I picked all Persuasions. And wasn't the Persuasions. It's a little more contemporary. The Persuasions, the 4 songs I posted by them, are more, old school, right? So, for instance, you'll dig this one.
Is this my destiny? Oh, I don't know why. I don't know why I love you. I don't know, but I love you, baby. Lord, I love you, baby. I don't know.
All right. I'll get in trouble for that one. You know that, right? Okay. So I'm back. I just wanted you to have a taste of what you might be exposed to if you click on the links that I put in this podcast. Okay. 4 great jams. Mark's a little agitated tonight. He's saying the Senate voted in U.S. Constitution to make America great again. I understand your agitation. Hi, Rachel. I can say this on the subject that Mark introduces. Hi, Chris and Becky, Mark and Ann. This was going to happen. But a couple of things. All right. Let me organize my thoughts. The Democrats did a good job of communicating to the public what went on. At the same time, they were never, from an evidence point of view, able to truly connect the dots. There was an obstacle there. Trust me. I talked about it last night. Really connecting the dots. What they needed was a witness who was unavailable. And that witness was somebody who was in the room when he started applauding what was going on. And another witness that would have been really extraordinary to have, would have been really helpful, somebody that said that he knew about this stuff that was going on premeditatedly. They didn't do that. I said yesterday, what they said was that these posts were taking place on sites that the White House was monitoring. That's a stretch. Let's say they were monitoring. Who at the White House was monitoring? Did that person communicate? And was whoever was monitoring, were they there when certain things were said that could have been used as evidence? So you needed a witness, 2 witnesses. One who says, Yes, he knew. I know he knew because I gave him the information. So I know he knew. Or he called me in and told me this information. And the second witness was the one I was in the White House. I was in the room when it all broke out, and Trump was excited and was like happy to see it going on, and was unwilling to intervene because it was really juice for him, right? Those are two witnesses they weren't going to get. They weren't going to get because those are people that were close to the president that were never going to flip. And I've said it before, nobody talks, everybody walks. Had this been a drug case, he would have walked. You would have probably, I mean, it's easy. You can convict some people rather readily, but it's really difficult to say this is evidence of, when really it's not evidence of. It's a suggestion of, and they had some powerful stuff. So what I think they did that was well received by so many of us is they put it into the public domain and they connected the dots for the rest of us, and I think that has value. And the other thing I think is that what they did was they forced, in essence, they forced Mitch McConnell to act a fool, but a necessary fool. Mitch McConnell's back was to the wall. He wants Trump out, but he didn't want to take a position against Trump prematurely because he's worried about his political career. He's worried about political finances. So what he did was he comes out after the fact and says, yeah, what you saw is what you saw. I'm not going to take away what you saw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that it was an illegal proceeding. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Now, the way this happens is a judge in a case says, well, this is what the legislature says. So whether you agree with it or not, you'll comply with that. That's the law. And that's what happened in the Senate was over 50 senators said the law is we can impeach him. And because there's no other, there's no place else to create the law that governed that became the law. Ostensibly, when 51 senators said we can impeach him legally, then the other 49 would have had to fall in line and go, well, don't like it, but that's the law. And Mitch McConnell would have had to capitulate. Mitch McConnell's not stupid. He knows he's talking to a relatively uneducated audience, and he knows that he can drop kick this because he knows that when he says it was unconstitutional, the people that he's speaking to are going to buy it. And so he was talking to a specific audience. He didn't want to look like he was defending Trump. In fact, of course, he didn't look like he was defending Trump. He said maybe in a criminal proceeding, maybe in another lifetime. Maybe he'll come back as a three-legged dog in New Delhi, struggling for food against, Indian children. But he segregated himself from the vote. So that was as ridiculous as it looked. It's shrewd of Mitch. Mitch is a shrewd guy. He knows the people he's talking to did not grasp the hypocrisy of it because they were behind the whole idea it was unconstitutional. So his statement that Trump's a piece of garbage may hold some water going forward. No, it will not prevent him from holding office again. Now, a couple of things could prevent Trump from ever holding office again. One is he could die with his diet and his exercise routine, so he might just pass away, and then he's not going to be available to run. Or two, his health in any case and his mind are going to be in deteriorate. In 4 years from now, he tries to run for president. He's not going to be very sharp. He may still be a bully, but by that time, I would hope that somebody who takes the stage to debate him will know how to deal with a bully. They'll mangle him. The other thing is he just may not have the juice to run in 4 years for office again. So, but no, nothing that happened in the last week, albeit it was intended to prevent him from running for office again. It didn't succeed. So he can run for dog catcher. He can run for president tomorrow. All right. So, what else did y'all want to discuss? Because I'm here. I saw some of this. I didn't watch it as closely as some of you. I know Chris was watching other people watching. I saw text, I saw Facebook, and people were overwhelmingly agitated. Of course, that's also, you know, the algorithms for my Facebook would, of course, bring me to that. So I think that, I'm just not surprised by anything. If I'm surprised by anything, it's that they eat 7 Republicans to their side. And, that's better than I expected. And I think it's better than the Democrats expected. So I'm going to explain a couple of things about what happened from a quasi-legal perspective. So while I'm watching this, there was disruption. This woman, it was a white woman. I don't remember names. I know that Jamie's Raskin. That's it. I don't know the others' names. And so she was speaking, and she introduced a clip and a comment about the clip, a quotation. And the other side kind of went ballistic immediately. They objected. They said that's not an evidence. Now that is a perfectly legitimate objection to make in a closing argument. This guy's making a closing argument. You can't. These people are making closing arguments. You can't suddenly introduce new facts that the other side never had an attempt to had opportunity to refute or test. So she it looked like she was doing that. I mean, even when I heard her say it, I thought, I don't remember that. Of course, I didn't watch everything, but I didn't remember them introducing that clip. So I'm like, oh. And so there was this quiet hung over the crowd. And then if you're watching MSNBC, there's this former Senator Claire McCaskill, I think Senator. And anyways, she's I think she was a Republican turned whatever. I don't know what she is, but she speaks well. She speaks generally with some juice. She knows what she's talking about. She was in the legislature. But this time they said, so what do you think's going on? Because she used to be a prosecutor. And she said, well, it's just he's getting under their skin. So they're making objections. They're just trying to disrupt his flow, try to mess him up. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think they were making a legitimate objection. And then she said, when I was a prosecutor, I would be interrupted by defense attorneys, and they would say, assuming facts not in evidence, and yes, it disrupted me, but generally the judge will give you latitude and tell the jury, we'll leave it to your memories as to what was evidence and what wasn't. No. That's true. The judges do that, but that's not right. So if suddenly during closing argument, the prosecution says, and, remember, they asked him questions and he pleaded the fifth. Well, you can't introduce that. You can't introduce that at any point during the trial unless the defendant takes the stand and makes a comment. You say, but you were given an opportunity. But if nobody says anything, you can't introduce that. If somebody says it at closing argument, then it's a mistrial. The judge has to call off the trial. Now, they're reluctant to do that. Trial may take 2-3 weeks. May take 2-3 days, may take 2-3, it doesn't matter. Judges don't like to call off a trial during closing argument. Everything's already been done, witnesses, juries, whatever. So they will try to weasel out of a dilemma where a prosecutor or sometimes a defense lawyer brings up and suggests that there's a fact that you never really had it for you. Now they're saying it was. Anyways, so initially they ruled that she had not introduced the tape, but she had introduced the statement. And so she said, I'm going to proceed. And then there was another disruption. She was apparently being told, no, we did submit that tape. And she said, well, that tape is in the record. My statement remains in the record, and I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to proceed. But when Claire McCaskill made a short shrift of it, I'm like, that's bullshit. I believe that when you were prosecutor, you did that because I've seen prosecutors do it, and it's wrong, and you shouldn't make light of it. And so I lost a lot of respect for Claire McCaskill, as I would anybody, prosecutor or other, who said that they infused a trial wrongly. I mean, the trial is, man, there's so many rules. You stick to those rules, man, So I did not like her dismissal of their arguing that there were facts being presented that had not been presented during the trial. You can't do it. Can't wait until closing argument where somebody can't say, wait a second. Who said that? We didn't have a chance to cross-examine them. You see, that's really more important than witnesses is the impeachment of witnesses. And that wasn't taking place here because there were no live witnesses. This is another shortcoming in a trial of this sort. It wasn't a legal venue. It's illegal only to the Congress, to the presidency. It has no legal effect. It doesn't. That type of trial doesn't exist typically anywhere else because there are rules of evidence. And here there was very little rules of evidence. But what they were able to do throughout the trial was they admitted statements from people that were not there to be cross-examined, but they were public media statements. So the other side conceded, it's come in, let it in. They introduced videotape that they're allowed to bring it in. It's an admission against interest a lot of times, but in a lot of the stuff that they introduced, the beatings and stuff, would not have been allowed in a regular trial because it tended to be more inflammatory than probative. What were you proving when you showed a cop being beaten with a flag? You really were appealing to emotion because attacking the Capitol is attacking the Capitol. You could have left it at they attacked the Capitol, a cop was killed, and you could have showed what you had directly related to the cop being killed or to the initial attack on the Capitol, but you wouldn't have been able necessarily to go into all the little videos that they went into and what was happening when nobody was around. For instance, a video of these guys in the Senate chamber, but no senators were in there. That stuff may never have come in. So it was a trial done on a platform that doesn't exist anywhere else. That's the only place that platform exists. Whereas when I did a criminal trial, that type of platform exists in every state, every jurisdiction where there's criminal statutes. There is something called a criminal trial, and those trials may vary in what, when, and where you can do something. But there are certain parameters that always exist. You can't introduce an out-of-court statement for the truth of the matter inserted. So I say that, Kathy is guilty of shoplifting, and she shoplifted hundreds of dollars. And the way I know this is that, Rose said that Kathy told her that. Well, that's not admissible. I could try to bring Rose into court so that she could say there was a conversation and I said this, and in response to that might get in. But I can't come to court and go, well, Rose said Kathy did it. I can't bring in a statement that was made out of court. I'm supposed to bring in Kathy. She made the statement. I'm supposed to bring in Kathy. So otherwise, it's hearsay. So what did you hear? Rose says, well, I heard her say she did. That's hearsay, right? Especially if I'm introducing it to prove that Kathy actually did it. So there are all these rules, and they apply in every criminal case. And then in civil courts, you have certain rules apply in all civil cases, no matter where you're practicing law. So this platform that this trial took place on, all the words were changed. You had the impeachment. That word's not used in the criminal law, right? It's used. Impeachment in criminal law means that you thought Rose was your friend. No, she sold you out, girl. So we use the word impeachment in criminal cases, and this was another important point I wanted to make. So both sides have an opportunity to present witnesses, right? But those witnesses must take the stand, must raise their right hand, swear before God or whatever meaningful to them that what they're going to say is true, and they testify under threat of perjury if they are untruthful. So they take the stand and they run through this rendition. This time Rose says, I was with Kathy. I saw her shoplifting. I saw her putting stuff underneath her clothing. I witnessed this, I witnessed that. Okay, so that's pretty compelling, an eyewitness, right? So my job may be now as a defense lawyer is to say, Rose, you and Kathy used to be like tight, really good friends, yeah, and like sisters, yeah. But she married your ex-husband, didn't she? Yeah, she did, yeah. Eventually, I'm going to try to show a motive to lie. I'm going to try to destroy her credibility. Yes, she testified. Yes, she claims these are the facts. But to my side, it's like, listen, she's just making stuff up because she's trying to get even with Kathy. And here's the reason she's trying to get even with Kathy. And I'm going to do all of that I can to show that her testimony is biased and it's lies, and it's just a vendetta, right? If I can do that, then her eyewitness testimony begins to not look so great, which it looks great when she first said it. Everybody's like, well, what are we doing here? She saw. That's what people read the newspaper, and they get the police report. And the police report is always written from the prosecutorial eye. So the reason I was always losing a case before I ever got in court is if it was recorded in the media, they use the police officer's report. So you don't know if my client said something that was exculpatory, that is, would lead one to believe he was innocent, or that they interviewed other witnesses and then decide, I don't believe them. You don't know any of that. That's not in the police report that they released to the media. Then when I get in there and the police officer takes the stand, and this is exactly what happened. Murder case, police officer comes in and testifies that, he arrested my client. My client confessed, goes through all this stuff, trying to convict my guy. Now, I'm looking at his police report. And the day before he interviewed my guy, he interviewed another guy who had motive and opportunity to commit the crime. And my client didn't really have any motive. Okay. So I just say to him, I say, you remember interviewing George? Yeah. And at the time that you interviewed George, you said that my client told you used a 22 caliber Tic Tac. Is that right? Yeah. And the day before, George told you that my client used a 22 caliber Tic Tac. Yes. And I went through this whole thing. I said, in other words, everything you claim that my client confessed to, you'd already been told that 24 hours earlier. Yes. Why didn't you arrest that guy? I said, why didn't you arrest him? It was his mother that got robbed by the deceased. The jury's like, whoa, what? And the cop says, well, I didn't think he did it. He didn't think he did it. So the cop didn't go, I'm like, he's like, what, did you get an alibi? No. Did you check his clothes for gun residue? Did you interview people who lived above him? Did you interview people who lived below him? I said, so he was a suspect until he told you he wasn't a suspect, and then you let him go. And you went out and got my guy because he told you, this first guy told you all these facts, but he said it was my guy. So he knew the kind of gun that was used, what everybody was trusting. He knew everything about the crime except one thing, it wasn't him. Yeah, my guy walked, right? And you understand why my guy walked. So the anatomy of the case is that this thing we call cross-examination is so critical to every criminal trial or every kind of trial like this, even a civil trial. I shouldn't say just criminal. It's necessary that you are given an opportunity to interview a witness who says something that's to the detriment of your client. These lawyers that were there on behalf of Trump, they probably should have allowed some witnesses in. They didn't want any. They kept saying, if you let one in, we're going to bring in 100. And that freaked out the Congress. Like, we don't have weeks to give to this, all right? And so they all agreed to some accommodations, reading statements instead of the witness. And I tell you that I typically don't do that. The only time I will stipulate that if somebody was called to the stand, they would say something is, I don't really want to belabor what they're going to say anyways. Like the coroner's report, a lot of times after I've done a coroner's report in a murder case, I don't want the coroner going through every icky detail. So I'll probably agree to admit the coroner's report, because the coroner's report generally doesn't implicate my client. It just tells you how the death came about. It doesn't say, and Joe Blow did it. So I'll say, yeah, in other words, we know somebody shot the guy. We know he's dead. We know he was shot 3 times. We know he bled out. We know, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can introduce that evidence because it's not really something I'm going to spend my time fighting on. So there were no living witnesses at this trial. There was no opportunity for cross-examination. If this had been that kind of case, you would have seen. Yep, I'm bringing everybody into this, Rose. Yeah, you would think that she was your friend, but sometimes friends throw friends under the bus. So that's what's happening. I thought since you seem to like some of the legal elements of this, that I would explain to you some of it in smaller doses. This isn't law school, but what I understand Mark's fury and agitation that he's probably experiencing like the rest of us, but it wasn't the best venue for a conviction, but it was a great venue for airing publicly. And they never would have gotten that kind of media attention any other way. So let me tell you this, everybody. It was brilliant in large measure to impeach him and send it to the Senate for trial. They had, I think, 5 or 6 managers. Those are prosecutors in this case. And they were aired on CNN, MSNBC, probably Fox. I don't know about the other networks. This, and though most of the people watching it already made up their minds, it was important that this kind of airing of what happened, somebody connecting the dots for you and I, if for nobody else. You and I saw a piece here, a piece there. We didn't know about this, we didn't know about that, and then boom, somebody brought it to us, laid it out for us so that we could get mad, good and mad, and understand just how deep this is. Let's hope that all this is going to help to derail whatever political or criminal aspirations the Trump family had in mind. Surely they were not done with us yet. Ivanka's supposedly going to be running in Florida, somewhere around Mar-a-Lago. Junior, I mean, these are people that can't get jobs outside of the Trump family. So they were really swinging the vines from tree to tree politically, thinking they were gaining political capital. And Mitch just did what he could, albeit as weaselly as he could too. Mitch McConnell just did what he could to derail Trump from ever getting political traction again. That, I believe, is what that speech was intended to do. As weaselly as you want to look at it, if you saw the speech after the trial by Mitch McConnell, he pretty much threw Trump under the bus and ran over him a couple of times. That's what happened. So, am I responding at all to your visceral agitation that you all, not all of you, but those of you that were, are raging liberals, or in the alternative, do I think he'll start getting charged with other things, tax fraud and whatever? Good question. And this one I don't mind answering. Clearly, he's under investigation. And clearly, he no longer has the immunity of office. So it is believed, Joan, that he probably committed bank fraud and some other civil criminal offenses, white-collar crime, as they would call it. And Michael Cohen seems to be a witness to some of that, and some other people. So I believe that he will be investigated for tax fraud and whatever, but I don't know how much evidence is out there. Michael Cohen says, when he submitted this to the bank, let's say when he said Trump Tower was worth $50 million, and he was posting that as collateral. In fact, he had every reason to know that it wasn't worth $50 million. At best, it was worth $20 million, because the reality is he had a set of books that showed he was losing money every day there. And so as collateral, it was really a negative collateral, and where he said that this was a moneymaker worth $50 million. He was lying. That's, when you do that to a bank, that's bank fraud. If you submit IRS returns that are manipulated, like you've got one set of books here, one says, well, that's tax fraud, right? You underpay by overstating something inaccurately. And his efforts to get the vote changed may result in some criminal charges of conspiracy or attempt to coerce these people. I don't know exactly what crime, because I've never represented anybody in a political case like that. But surely there are things like extortion. If you don't do this, do that, right? So we shall see. I'm convinced that the Attorney General for New York, both the city council and the state council, are going to be investigating him, and I'm positive that Georgia is going to be investigating him. But I don't know, with Trump Enterprises, there may be investigations in multiple states. He may be getting investigated in Chicago right now because he owns property, if he does own that property. So let's hope he gets charged with enough stuff and goes to prison and gets to sit around with Mr. Shaman, and they can shoot the shit and play cards together. So I hope, and I don't want to for a minute be dismissive of some of the agitation by any means. I didn't get too agitated today because I've been under the impression he was skating when they said Lindsey Graham, when the newspaper said Lindsey Graham had an interview and he said, he called Trump and told him, don't worry. I assumed that Lindsey Graham was conveying the sentiments of many Republicans, because Lindsey Graham is a big leader in the Republican Party. There were so many clues that this was unwinnable for what, no matter what. And I like what Jamie Raskin said, during the post impeachment trial interview. They were challenging him. Why didn't you bring in witnesses? Why didn't you bring in the person who was sitting in the White House with him when he was watching the riot? Why didn't you bring in, and he said two things that are really important. He said, it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what witnesses we would have brought. We could have brought 100 witnesses. What you heard the Republicans who have been interviewed say, Mitch McConnell and the others, is we weren't willing to look at the facts. We were looking at the process, and the process was illegal. Therefore, we were going to exonerate him from this charge, no matter what, on the basis of it was wrong process, it's the wrong venue. We don't have jurisdiction. Of course, there were lots of arguments that they're wrong. Some very prominent people argued they were wrong. So his point was, didn't matter what witnesses, and he also made the point of saying, we tried, and Swalwell, I think is his name, also emphasized this. We tried to get witnesses. There were witnesses that may have been helpful. They weren't available. They were not making themselves available. Everybody's been through that, man. There's never been an important case that I've had where I've had access to all the witnesses I wanted. One time I had a murder trial. There were 4 kids charged. My guy was going to trial first because he was the shooter. The other 3 were in the car, and they were charged with murder also. Well, here's the problem. There were 7 witnesses to the crime. 1 was dead. 2 were gang member friends of his, and the other 4 were in the car, my client being one of the 4. So by charging everybody with first-degree murder, and everybody had a different lawyer, the other lawyer said, of course, my client's not going to testify because they'll use his testimony against him. So no, my client's got nothing to say. You guys on his own. It's not whether he's guilty or innocent. You guys on his own. I mean, there was a shooting, and our guys are going to be coming up with their own defense, and nobody wants to be associated with the shooter. So those guys pled the 5th. They were like, yeah, no, we're not coming. Don't bother subpoenaing us. And I couldn't force their testimony because they were charged. And then the other 2 guys, well, they came to trial. They came and said their guy wasn't doing anything wrong. My client shot him. They were like, hey, he was just being friendly and walking up the car, and they shot him. And I'm like, yeah, that's That ain't the way it happened. Two gangs, you don't walk up, one gangbanger walk up to another gangbanger from a different gang and go, hey, how do you do? How you guys doing? Can I help you? No, no. They walk up and they go, yo, man, and they reach down like they got a gun. Okay. They reach down like that. And my client said that's exactly what happened. He got scared. He thought the guy was going to pull a gun, so he shot him. We don't know if he had a gun because they drove away. If he had a gun, the other two guys would have taken it away and hit it. So witnesses are oftentimes not available, right? So even if you got him, and that's what Jamie Raskin was saying. He was saying there may have been witnesses, but they weren't available. They were going to be hostile to me. They were not going to cooperate. And I've had people I needed on criminal cases just wouldn't show up, So let's put that one aside. So we've got 10 minutes left. I hope you all are, while you're thinking whether you have a question of a legal or non-legal nature, all I can do is I'm a good trial lawyer. I wasn't a good paper pusher, pencil pusher, whatever they call it. I was good at trial, but the thing is that even I was intimidated by the law when I was working in the courts, because the law is the law. What didn't intimidate me was facts. Facts are facts. They're the foundation of the story. You just have to look at the facts and try to create a version of what happened that comports with the facts, not to come up with alternative facts. You look at the facts, and a lot of times the facts as applied were going to be a mischaracterization of what happened. Didn't register with me when cops would say, oh, this person did that in this manner. There were a lot of times I'm like, listen, I've been out there in the streets for a long time, man. Ain't nobody doing it like that. Nobody does it like that. That's silly. Cops he just wrote that down because he's trying to make a picture that will help convict the guy. But the fact that I have is his police report. He's made this assertion. He stuck with it. So when he comes to court, I got this. If he reiterates this statement, I'm gonna tear him up by showing how impractical that was. On the other hand, what they frequently will do is they will go beyond the report. They will try to add new facts. And of course, then, you get them because you say, well, you're just making stuff up today. You're just telling this jury things that you never told anybody before, did you? Well, yeah, I told my partner. Oh, you told your partner, but I'm supposed to write it down the day of the event. Now, 2 years later, you remember real well. My client was jiggling like he was itchy from talcum powder that was being, whatever. I'm just running my lips, but you're like, you're just embellishing, and juries don't like you to. If you can show that the cop had written a report contemporaneous with the crime, but months later or years later, he's making more shit up that he was supposed to put in the original report. They're like, oh, okay, I got you, counsel. They look at me like, yeah. All right, I get it, man. I get your point. So, I don't know why I keep going back to the legal stuff when I mean to ask you if you all are acquainted with the Persuasions. If you're not, you know what doo-wop is. You know what a cappella is. They're a doo-wop a cappella. They were a gospel group. They changed a lot of members over the years, just like the Temptations did. Maybe even more than the Temptations did. I went to see the Persuasions live maybe 3 times. I don't think they were ever exactly who they were, but I think I saw them very early, 71 or so. And they're just, as far as a cappella goes, they're probably one of the most successful, most fluid groups ever in that genre. And they just, they consistently would knock it out of the park on their first 2 albums, Street Corner Symphony and We Came to Play. I don't remember offhand. I think Street Corner Symphony was the first one. We Came to Play the second one. After that, there was such a change in members of the group, that I never really bought any of their subsequent albums, or if I did, I didn't keep them. So, but I've always kept a copy of Street Corner Symphony, and we came to play 2 jamming a cappella albums. And I urge you to take a listen before this slips off into the digital abyss. So like as soon as we finish up Meta, click on them, man. You know, I mean, and the other one was, Rockapella, Zombie Jamboree. And if you have never seen it, something good is to hit enter. Something good to watch is Spike Lee and Company do it a cappella. It was a do it a cappella. Spike Lee and this other woman got together. Anyways, they got maybe half a dozen a cappella groups together, and they it's about an hour and 20 minutes, and it's the bomb, man. It's you got the Persuasions, it's got a rockapella, it's got the 6. Oh man, they had so many jams. I'll tell you one or the other. Let's see. No, that's not the one I want. No, I want the one that's in the bathroom with the women. That was a great one in there. No. Go back. Stop with that. Sorry, I'm talking to my. Yeah, he wants to give me a commercial.
Just landed my dream job.
Oh God. So I what am I gonna do? I wanted to play you another jam from there, but I'm not gonna be able to. All right, it's 6:41. Yes, Best 12's great group. Thank you, MacDougall. Thank you for acknowledging. They were just extraordinary. Their bass guy was a bass guy that was around doing a cappella in the time, and their alto and falsetto, soprano, whatever you call them. I like a cappella. I liked the Nylons. They were goofy. They were pop, but they did some good. Sha-na-na, hey, they did that real good. Kiss Him Goodbye is the name of the song. So, we're just plugging in, man. We're just plugging into the source when we do stuff like this. When we get together, we visit for 45 minutes, and at the same time, I've discovered that y'all appreciate good music. So that stimulated me to start posting not just good music, great music, right? Because you're an appreciative audience, and you didn't always listen to the same stuff I listen to. So if I do my research and bring you what I knew to be great, I feel like I'm bringing you something new. And for those of you that did know it was great, but you haven't listened to it for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, you're like, hey, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that jam. Do you remember? Okay. So it's Saturday night. I didn't do Let's Get the Party Started. I didn't do It's Another Saturday Night. I completely changed up on you. And let me tell you the line that I love so well. From the Persuasions, Walk on the Wild Side. This is a line I've used a million times, right? Okay. So, one day of praying, 6 nights of fun. Odds against going to heaven, 6-1. All right. Bring your hands before your hearts. Connect with your heart. Close your eyes. Bring your head down and bow to yourself to acknowledge what a beautiful human you are. Such wonderful values. And generate loving kindness for yourself, thinking, may I be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May I be free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May I use this path to find a place of comfort and peace, and even freedom from all suffering. May my mother and father and all my family members and all my friends be happy, healthy, free from harm. May they too find a path brings them to a place of greater peace and comfort. To those persons I find difficult, whatever ill will I have in my heart, In this moment, I release just long enough at least to send them loving kindness, thinking of persons that I feel ill will towards. May they be happy, healthy, and free from harm. At this moment, may they even be happy, joyful, and at peace. And may all living beings throughout the universe, all humans and non-humans, be the recipient of this collective goodwill that emanates from us out into all parts of the universe, so that all living beings be happy, healthy, free from harm. May they live their lives, safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. You won't see me tomorrow, Debbie, unless you just happen to see me on Facebook. I won't be here. I'll be back on Monday, Debbie. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, by the way, going to be a really rough weekend, right? Yeah. It's going to be sub-freezing. It might be sub-zero. I don't know. By the way, I talked to Bill Stieb in Ealing, Minnesota, which is northern. He said it was like 25 below there today. Okay. So thank you all. What kind people. Thank you, Mark and Ann and Rachel and Rose and Kathy and Debbie and Lisa and Joan and Becky and Chris. And, if I didn't know you were there, I apologize. I never ignore anybody. Who am I to ignore anybody, right? All right. Yeah. Chris, stay warm. All right. Peace out.